welcome back to this week's episode of AMA Friday with Amy Miller, recruiting in yoga pants. We are not going to get to avoid the layoff topic, are we? I really wanted to. I do not want to talk about this. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. Okay, so there is no shortage of advice, guidance, suggestions, what have you, out there in social media land for folks who've been laid off and what the experts think you should or shouldn't do, what's appropriate or what's not appropriate, how you should respond, how you should react, how you're allowed to grieve, what you're allowed to post. It's actually really goofy and I hate it. But let's talk through it. Let me just throw my own bullshit into the pile of bullshit that you all are getting bombarded with when all you really want to do is probably curl up on the couch and watch some shitty reality TV and eat a tub of ice cream. Watch the video first and then go do that. Okay. So I want to talk through a couple of very practical things that I think, well, let me put it this way, things I would do if I were in your shoes, if I were laid off. So a little backstory, a little context. I have been laid off before. It's been years, but it has happened to me. And I remember being absolutely devastated and not sure how I was going to feed my kids, not sure how I was going to keep a roof over our heads. I mean, I was the breadwinner and we live in a high rent area, so it sucked. And I ended up working for the state government, the only place hiring at the time, which actually gives me some context I'm about to share with you that is related to what you should do if you are laid off. First and most important thing you can do immediately, apply for unemployment. Now, let me caveat, I'm a US-based recruiter. I live and work in the United States. I am coming again from kind of that US-based perspective. So different, countries and places in the world may have different rules or ways that they navigate those things. But here in the US, if you have been laid off, apply for unemployment immediately. Let me tell you why this is important. A lot of people they wrongly assume that, oh, well, I got a severance, so I won't be eligible for unemployment. I can't get unemployment because I have a severance. I have a 60-day, payroll or whatever. Couple of things typically that will happen there. First of all, if that genuinely makes you not qualified, you'll be denied, and that's okay. You still want to open your case. You want to have that information started. You want the data kicked off, especially when we're seeing thousands upon thousands of layoffs. Those caseworkers are going to get overwhelmed quick. So the sooner that you can actually take the steps to apply, you can do it online typically, the faster you start getting benefits, the faster that, again, that data is just recorded in the system. And if you are eligible, of course, it goes through a review process. You're going to start receiving those payments. And I understand that those payments may not sound like much, a few $100 a week, maybe. I think in Washington, I want to say it caps out at $600 a week or something like that. I remember when it capped at $324. I remember that very clearly. But, and I know that may not seem like a lot, especially for my big tech friends, but y'all, that'll keep some ramen in your belly, okay? So don't sleep on that. That's a couple grand a month you could put away and, hopefully keep yourself afloat. So, but I got a severance, right? Oh no, I can't, I'm not eligible. The severance, this is when I worked there, so please confirm this with your local offices or experts who are currently employed by your state who can speak to this. But when I was there, severance did not mean you were not qualified. It meant the only time severance would be an impact and affect your eligibility is if that severance was tied to your availability to return to your current employer. If you were like on the clock, you're working during that payout period, you're maybe furloughed and expected to be called back, things like that. So the key is that you have to be available to accept a new position. You have to not only be, laid off and meet certain criteria. Basically, you couldn't have been fired for cause, which you were not, by the way, if you were laid off. And you have to be able to actively job search. Most states have like a 3 application a week minimum they want you to record. and you have to be available to interview and start that job. So if you're laid off and you're like, hey, I'm going to use this time to go get a facelift and I'm going to be unable to work and job search for 3 weeks while I'm recovering, you're not eligible for unemployment insurance in that case. So if you're being honest about that, they're going to say, nope, call us in 3 weeks and you can go back to job search. So I mention all of that because I think that's an important distinction in, kind of this kind of safety net, this governmental safety net that we do have. And I think that a lot of people are nervous or scared or even embarrassed to apply for unemployment. And I got to tell you, your employers took money out of your paycheck in the form of taxes to pay those taxes. Get your money back, okay? Do not feel bad about taking what's yours and what you have earned as an American worker. Again, check your local states, check your local, country, wherever you live, and look at the rules for you and where you are based out of. But here in the US and specifically Washington State, that was my experience working for the Employment Security Department. So that's a very tactical, specific step that you can take and you should take very quickly. Now let's get into some of the grayer area. And this is around announcing on LinkedIn, updating your social real estate, informing friends, family, and colleagues. This is hard. This sucks. And let me be really clear. The last thing that people who've been laid off need to hear from you is that they should not be writing these sappy posts or, saying things like, I really loved working at X company and I'm so sad to see my time come to an end and I'm genuinely going to miss all the... There are people out there, and this is so infuriating to me. There are people out there who are actually shaming job seekers, because that's what they are now. They're job seekers now. Shaming job seekers for having feelings about this traumatic life event, because it is. It's a traumatic life event. To lose your job, which is in so many probably unhealthy ways, a big part of our identity. It's how we introduce ourselves. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Amy Miller. I'm a recruiter. Right? It becomes so ingrained in us that this facet of our life is so important and such a linchpin to our existence. Shouldn't be. But this is how we've been conditioned, unfortunately. And so imagine losing that, no fault of your own. You did nothing wrong. You've now lost that identity. You're now, trying to figure out what's next. You look around you, 100,000 people just like you are in the same boat. You're going to compete with all of them for your next job. Okay, not really, but you get what I'm going with this. And then some jackass on social media is like, oh, I can't believe you're saying all those things about that company. Like, what's wrong with you? Drink the Kool-Aid much? Sir. So I don't want to tell you how to share the news. I don't want to tell you there's a right way or a wrong way or a formula or a template. I want you to give yourself permission to discuss this, to grieve this, to address this, however works for you. For some of us, that is going to be a ridiculously sappy, love letter, if you will, to our former employer and to the people that we no longer get to work with. Like that would be me. I am very lucky I was not laid off. Okay, I probably should have led with that. I'm still gainfully employed, thank God, for now. We'll see what the future brings. But if I were impacted, I probably would be one of those idiots gushing about the amazing people that I no longer get to work with day in and day out, because I love my team and I love what I do. And I'm not sorry for that, okay? And I'm sure I'll love the next job just as much whenever it's time for me to move on. But how dare you shame me or anyone else who feels that way and actually puts it in writing? that says more about the person complaining than it ever will about the person who posted it. So consider this, my friends, permission, not that you need it, support from me to go out however you need to. If you want to be the person who writes the sappy love letter post, do it. If you want to be the person who decides to Jerry Maguire that shit, flip everybody off on the way out and steal the fish and tell them all, how wrong they are, do that too. I don't care. It's none of my business. I'm not going to tell you how to grieve, and I'm certainly not going to tell you how to process your emotions and what you're going through in trying to figure out your next step. I will say this. If you are in an industry, recruiting obviously is a big one, and certainly where we saw significant impacts recently. If you're in an industry that is very heavy on the LinkedIn usage, put it that way, I do recommend that you update your profile. I think you do put that end date on your current employer. You do reference, part of January 2023 reduction in force, whatever. Slap up that open to work banner, try it out, see if it works for you, take it out if it doesn't, that's fine. But feel free to experiment with these things, but I think you need to do everything you can proactively to get noticed and get in front of the right people and get eyes on your background to make sure that hopefully if the right opportunity opens up, you're top of mind, okay? So creating that regular content, updating your profile, commenting on other people's posts and just really engaging positively in things related to your industry, I think can only help you. Now, there is potentially a risk of how someone else will view your content, right? And this could go either way. If you're the sappy love story person or the, flaming dumpsters, person, either way, those are both pretty extreme. You can pick whichever one works for you. There is the risk that someone reading it is going to judge you no matter what. And that's something you just have to brace yourself for. We are all, I promise you, every single one of us that creates content is judged. Sometimes positively, sometimes very harshly. So my best advice, and I'll leave it here, my best advice, show up how you want people to see you. That's it. I'm not ashamed to love my team and my organization and the group that I work with and my job. I'm not ashamed of that at all. It's a rough period right now. I know that. I recognize that. But I still believe in the work that I'm doing. I'm happy to be able to continue doing it. And if it ended tomorrow, I'm not going to be ashamed in mourning that loss and grieving that through a post, updating my network. And if it was another company I'm no longer at, and this had happened, I might have a slightly different perspective, and I would not be ashamed to say that either. And if anyone wants to judge that content, judge that perspective, knock yourself out, because it is none of my business what an absolute jackass whose opinion does not matter thinks of me. All right, y'all. I hope that helps if you are struggling with a recent layoff or just need to vent, need an ear. Feel free to email me, amy@recruitinginyolepants.com. I'll do my best to listen and try to advise, give any other context or advice that I can specific to your situation. Of course, you can comment down below. Let's all support each other. Kindness is definitely the most valuable thing we can do at this point. That's it. Sometimes that's all we've got, and that's okay. Let's spread it around like confetti. See you next week.